Okay, there we go. So welcome everyone to our November community meeting. It's great to see so many of you, so many familiar names. I really do wish we had some more screens on or some videos. I really would love to see all of you. I do hope to see you on December 9th. We are having a very big Christmas party with the rest of the province, in fact, and you'll see some more details on our website about that shortly. But tonight is very cool. We have a couple presenters for you. We're first going to be hearing from Stephen Gregory and a little bit later from Gazal Kukreja. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Steve if you haven't met him yet, and then he's going to tell you a little bit about what he's been up to. So Stephen Gregory has lived a very active life. Educationally, he excelled, obtaining a master's degree in engineering with scholarships from the University of Toronto. Steve then went on to practice engineering at a variety of places of employment. He gained experience and resiliency during his career, and then the unthinkable happened. Steve's recovery from his accident has been uneven, to say the least. He remains with dysphagia, ataxia, and diplopia. However, as you will soon discover, much has been restored in terms of other cognitive functions. He continues to push the limits of his recovery, both cognitively and physically. So everyone, please welcome Stephen Gregory. Hey, Steve, I'm going to put your slides up now, okay?
All right. Great. Here we are. Reflection. How is this relevant to your life now? Reflection. Reflections can be seen in many spaces. Try getting through your day without seeing one. Think about it for a minute. We get up to go to the washroom, and there's a mirror. So what are we? 5 minutes into the day, and we already have one reflection behind us. What about reflection of the mind? There we go. And a nice slide I saw on Google Images. Next. Process. This is done automatically typically. You reflect on something, you get feedback. This food was hot compared to what we're used to. This car is slow compared to what we're used to. This lecture is boring compared to what we're used to.
I don't think so.
This always goes back to what we're used to. Reflection again. Looking back to similar experiences, something in our memory. Memory. This is the problem. You get it back by using it. Start small with phone numbers. Sounds easy until it's not. Focus on remembering only a few important things. Not everything we experience needs to be remembered. Relax and help the process of getting your memory back by having a time of reflection at the end of each day. You can also have these at the end of each meeting that you have to reinforce what was just presented. Talk your therapist into this because uh, my dad was a teacher and he always said three things about being a good teacher. Is to tell people what you're going to tell them, is to tell them, and is to tell them what you told them. Uh, repeat is necessary. Next. Relax. Nothing is as important for this moment than having a reflection, moment of reflection. Everything else can wait. Be in the moment and let other cares and concerns diminish. Just take a moment out and let your mind relax. No anxiety here. Just relax. Put all those other cares behind you. Next. Input your ideas of stuff to remember. that is easy. And so don't have to bother looking it up. Yeah, so if you need to know your mom's phone number, you can have that programmed on your cell phone. You don't have to remember it, so don't bother. But remember things like you need to know, like your own address, your own phone number. Remember those things. Thanks. This is some of my contact information if you want to get in touch with me more. I have a whole bunch of stuff on my website for sure. There's a lot of um, practical tips there.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of great stuff on your website. Stephen, I know you recently wrote a book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I wrote a second book, and this book is about all the lessons I've learned the hard way through trial and error. And so it's out now. It's on the website and on the Facebook, I think. Um, it's or you can email me and I'll send you a signed copy instead if you want for a modest price. But the thing is, all these years, taking me 21 years to write the book, and there's 21 years worth of experience, and just being able to relax and reflect on what has gone before me. So a lot of reflection has gone into the book for sure, Ryan.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of good resources and some of your learnings throughout the years on your website too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So everyone, please make sure to check out Steve's website after ABI Rehab and his Facebook page as well there. Recovery is my life. We have a few minutes if anyone has some questions for Steve, but we can take a few now. I will leave his email up for this period as well, and I'll probably put it in at the end of our presentation as well, just so you have it if you didn't catch it now. But we'll take a few questions if anybody has any for Steve Gregory. And thank you, Steve, so much for sharing this with us. Oh, sorry guys, I have to stop sharing the screen for a second. It's giving me a hard time trying to see the questions in the chat here. Okay. Looks like you've got some comments in the chat here, Steve. Not a question, just I suppose saying congratulations and job well done on your presentation. Okay. Well, again, I'm going to put Steve's email up at the very end and the rest of his contact information, the website and Facebook. So if you didn't catch it just now, I will put it up again here. As soon as I figure out how to use this computer, my goodness. Okay. Well, our fun continues, folks. We have another speaker with us. So as I mentioned, we have Gazal Kukreja. She is the Stakeholder Engagement Coordinator at the Ontario Brain Injury Association, building a community of brain injury survivors, caregivers, and family members who share their experiences, engage in dialogue, and advise on the future direction of brain injury care in Ontario. She is also the program coordinator at the Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation, where she supports implementation projects across the province that focus on applying brain injury and concussion clinical practice guidelines to practice. Gazal's education and neurocognitive rehabilitation and mental health informs her work across both organizations. She is passionate about cultivating a voice for the brain injury community and using her knowledge of implementation science to improve the quality of life for those living with brain injury. So, welcome, Gazal.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And thanks, Steve, for that great presentation. I think we can all use a little bit more reflection in our lives, especially given the state of the world we're living in now. Really taking time to slow down and reflect on what's really important. So thank you for having me here tonight, and Ryan for organizing this session. Let me get my slides up here and we'll get right into it.
For sure.
All right. Okay, so the title of my talk today is A Voice for Survivors and Caregivers, Building a Provincial Stakeholder Engagement Network for the Brain Injury Community. So I just wanted to start by giving a little roadmap of what we'll be talking about today. First, I will outline what is Brain Injury Speaks and the Stakeholder Engagement Network. We'll talk a little bit about how the network operates. And then I want to share some really interesting results with you about a COVID-19 impact survey that we put out. I'll also share next steps in the future direction of the network, and then finally how to get involved. And I hope all of you here this evening will be inspired to join the network and have your voice be heard. So what is Brain Injury Speaks? It's an active engagement network of persons with lived experience, caregivers, and family members all across the province of Ontario. And the reason we created this network was because there's really a need for a provincial voice when it comes to brain injury. And oftentimes decisions affecting the brain injury community in Ontario are made with very little input from persons living with brain injury and their family members and caregivers, even though you are the experts in brain injury. Decision makers and policymakers don't understand what it's like to live with a brain injury or care for someone with a brain injury in most cases. So in order to make positive changes to the brain injury services and priorities, we really need a systematic approach to inform service providers, associations, and government representatives about the needs of the brain injury community. And that's why we created Brain Injury Speaks. So we developed the stakeholder engagement network to understand the needs of persons living with brain injury and collect data and personal stories so that we can inform the future of brain injury priorities and services. Now, this network is a collaboration between the Ontario Brain Injury Association and the Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation, also in collaboration with the Brain Injury Associations and other organizations across Ontario. And lost my mouse here, one second. There we go. So just to give you some more background about what the different organizations do. So OBIA, or the Ontario Brain Injury Association, provides advocacy and direct support for persons living with brain injury, while Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation is the hub for research evidence and brain injury guidelines. And in collaboration, Brain Injury Speaks is the voice of the brain injury community. So the goals of the network, the short-term goal is to create a community of survivors, family members, and caregivers who share their experiences to inform OBIA, ONF, and other provincial organizations about the challenges and issues faced by the brain injury community. Long-term, we want to inform the future of brain injury care and policies across the province of Ontario, because currently there is no brain injury policy. This is a quick overview of who is involved in the network. And of course, we have persons with lived experience, family members, and caregivers, which I will say quite often throughout this presentation. The Brain Injury Speaks facilitator, that's me. So I manage the stakeholder engagement network and coordinate the input of both OBIA and ONF and all the brain injury associations. We also have a provincial advisory team, and this is made up of champions in different regions across the province who inform the future goals and directions of the network. And we meet on a fairly regular basis every couple of months to provide, to discuss different topics that need to be addressed. The provincial advisory team members also give feedback on communicating with the network. They help direct the goals of the network, and we'll be ramping up even more in the new year. So how exactly does this stakeholder engagement network operate? We use a two-way communication channel, and what that means is we have newsletters that we send out every couple of months to inform about different changes that are happening to brain injury services and priorities, to talk about different events coming up within Brain Injury Speaks and different opportunities to get involved. And the main way we collect information from members of the network is through surveys. And this is where the two-way feedback and communication channel comes in. And I'll talk a little bit more about this soon. So the way we get feedback, like I said, is mostly through surveys. So first we identify the systematic issues that are facing the brain injury community. And oftentimes this comes directly from survivors of brain injury or those who are living with brain injury who identify the issues. Also the provincial organizations who work directly with persons with lived experience, as well as OBIA and ONF. They have a good awareness of what the major issues are. Then we put out a call to action to the membership of Brain Injury Speaks, mostly in the form of surveys that we send out online, but we're also planning to do focus groups and town hall sessions in the new year. And that's a great opportunity to get involved. And we're all pretty familiar with Zoom by this point, and we'll be hosting those over Zoom to get some more dialogue and communication going. Step number 3 here is to get feedback from members of the brain injury community, and then we analyze and we summarize the results of those surveys. And then those results go on to inform brain injury priorities and services across the province. So for example, the COVID-19 impact survey that I'll touch on soon, that was sent to representatives from the Ministry of Health to give them an understanding of what the challenges are right now with brain injury services. You know, some of us can't tolerate screens for very long, and that's been a big challenge with accessing medical appointments throughout COVID. So that's just one example. Like I mentioned, the topics that we choose to address in the surveys, a lot of the time those come directly from persons with lived experience, also from ONF and OBIA who have an awareness of the broader issues that are impacting people across the province. The Provincial Acquired Brain Injury Network, or PABIN, also meets on a fairly regular basis, and that's made up of service providers across the province as well. We also get feedback from members of the Provincial Advisory Team, and brain injury associations also let us know what are the major issues that we need to address at any point in time. This is a look at the current stakeholder numbers. So right now we have 508 people. It may be a couple more because I haven't checked this week yet, but predominantly it's persons with lived experience. And we also have about 25% family members and caregivers, because we know the experiences are very different, but also very important. And we are continuing to grow. We know there's a much larger population to recruit from, and we're continuing to improve our recruitment efforts to grow this network as big as we can to make the biggest impact. In some ways, COVID has given us the opportunity to connect with a lot more people virtually, which has been great in a lot of ways. This is some of the data that we collect when members join the network. So we ask whether you are a survivor or a caregiver or family member. There's also an opportunity to tell your story or express why you wanted to join this network. We also know that the city or town of residence that you live in is a big impacting factor to what services are available to you. So that's an important piece of data that we keep track of. Of course, the type of brain injury, whether it's a concussion or a more severe brain injury, that's important as well. And the date of the injury, because we know that brain injury can be lifelong and the impacts last a very, very long time. I should also mention here that we only collect the data that we need, and anytime we are summarizing this data, we de-identify it. So any names or demographic information is removed from the summaries that we put out. So as I mentioned, we recently did a COVID-19 impact survey, and I wanted to share some of the results with all of you. This is a look at the large summary, and I know this is very hard to see, so I'll break it down for you. We had 210 respondents to this survey, which is a really great number. It's almost 40% of the network of the time, 40% of the network at the time when we did the survey. Mostly it was survivors or persons with lived experience who completed the survey, but we also had almost 20% of caregivers and family members. To give you an idea of the geographical representation, I think most of you are in the Toronto area, so you can see here that most of the responses come from the Greater Toronto area and surrounding, but we also had quite a few responses from the north as well as the east, which is great to see that we have representation from across the province. When we asked about the different supports and services that were impacted by COVID-19, the responses were sorted into 3 different categories. The first one was healthcare or medical appointments, crisis and emergency services and helplines. Second was rehabilitation. So this was inclusive of non-medical healthcare, personal support services, rehab therapy or community support workers. And finally, community, which includes peer support groups, survivor support groups, family support groups, or day programs. So during COVID-19 social distancing measures, 11% of survey respondents relied on their family member or caregiver to provide healthcare support instead of seeking formal healthcare services. And 16% said that their family members were taking on the role of a personal support worker or community support worker. So this puts a big burden on family members and caregivers. And we know that's a major issue across the province, is getting support for family members and caregivers. About 15% of persons with lived experience didn't know what healthcare support was available to them during COVID-19. And I think we can do a much better job of putting word out there of what's available and what is accessible. And similarly, up to 37%, which is a pretty big number, didn't know what kind of community support was available to them. Keeping in mind that this survey was put out in June, I know that the brain injury associations and organizations are making more of an effort to promote their services and their support groups and day programs. So I think if we did this survey again, that 37% would decrease, hopefully. When we look at the factors that were impacted by COVID-19, mental health, to no surprise, was impacted the most. And second to that, social health, so not being able to connect socially. We also saw impacts to physical health, cognitive health, financial security, and personal support and care. We also asked survey respondents what has helped them the most during COVID-19. And family and friends support was listed as number 1, as well as social and support groups. A lot of respondents also mentioned yoga, exercise, and walking when it was safe to do so, and mindfulness and meditation, which was great to see. Now, accessing medical appointments during COVID-19. I'll go through these slides fairly quickly, but if you do want to take a look at them again, I'm happy to share them with Ryan to send out to you afterwards as well. So when we asked respondents, how did they access virtual medical appointments during COVID-19? Most respondents said that they accessed those over the phone. More than half of survey respondents said that they accessed medical appointments over the phone. 27% said that they accessed through Zoom or another virtual video platform. Others said that they were online through a voice-only call, and 8% said that they accessed medical appointments through text or email. For those people who weren't able to access virtual medical appointments, 14% were unsure what was available to them. So again, I think we can do a much better job of getting the word out there of what is available. Others were relying on caregiver and family members to provide the support. And almost 10% said that they can't tolerate computer and phone screens. And I think that's becoming a greater issue as we're in this virtual world more and more. So non-medical appointments. These results are fairly similar to accessing medical appointments in that 42% were accessing these over the phone, and the next highest category here was online through a video call. Again, the reasons for not being able to access non-medical care, majority of respondents said that they weren't sure what was available to them, and they were relying on their caregiver or family member to provide the support rather than seeking external support. So that was a very quick overview of the COVID-19 survey results. And now I want to share with you the next steps in the future direction of Brain Injury Speaks. So as I mentioned, the results from the surveys that we put out are shared with brain injury organizations, associations, representatives from the ministry, and other service providers to really understand what the needs are, and so that service providers can hopefully make some changes to the way that they're providing service in order to better cater to the needs. We've also published the survey results in the OBIA Review magazine. We also sent some of the survey results to the Provincial Acquired Brain Injury Network, as well as the ministry. And I've been doing presentations at organizations and associations to share the results and recruit more members for the Brain Injury Speaks network, because we know there is power in numbers. So the more we can grow this network, the greater the impact we can have. If you want to see where the other summaries are available, the link is here to our website where all the past survey summaries are accessible to you. And I can share this link with Ryan afterwards as well. So next steps for the provincial advisory team. As I mentioned, these are champions from different regions in Ontario, and currently we have 5 members on this team. We meet on a bi-monthly basis, and the provincial advisory team continues to inform the future goals of the network, provide topics on to provide suggestions on topics to be addressed, and feedback on communicating with the network. If this is something you might be interested in, you can reach out to me afterwards. We are always looking to expand and grow. In the new year, we are planning some really exciting focus groups and town hall sessions to address the topic of social isolation and community supports. So again, if this is something that is interesting to you and you'd like to share your experiences, I will put out information to let you know how to get involved with this. We're targeting February to launch these town hall sessions. And as I mentioned, these will be happening over Zoom. Another big issue that has been addressed recently is housing. And we also put out a housing survey recently, and I want to share some of those results with you as well. The major issues that were identified were a lack of appropriate housing, and this was brought up in our traumatic brain injury report card meetings that we've been having across the province. So the housing survey was put out to really understand what are the housing challenges that exist. The survey respondents, between survivors and caregivers, about 65% said that they have faced housing challenges, which is a really large percentage. The major challenges here include money or financial difficulties in accessing housing, as well as availability of appropriate options. Wait lists have also been an issue, as well as stability of housing. We also asked survey respondents who they rely on for care related to their brain injury in the home. More than half of the respondents said that they rely on their significant other. And again, this just speaks to the caregiver burden and fatigue that is bound to happen, especially during COVID-19 when not a lot of services and in-home supports are available. If we look to the other responses on the right there, some people said that they're relying on their ex-spouse, their roommate, their sibling, their nurse. And I really love that someone wrote that their dog is providing brain injury support for them. So some of the reasons that were limiting access to in-home care and support, finances were the biggest one. People can't afford in-home care. So that's why they're relying on their family member or caregiver. In some cases, the person with lived experience is not open to outside services or having a stranger come into their home. 13% said that they're not eligible for support provided by community organizations. So that's something that I think we can address and make a priority going forward. Another one that isn't talked about too often is the issue of having stable housing. So we also asked survey respondents, has there been a time where you didn't have a fixed address? And 13% said yes. And of those 13%, 50% said that that period of time was more than 6 months. And I think that's a really long time to not know where you might sleep the next night. We know there is a large percentage of the homeless population who have experienced brain injuries as well. So housing is definitely something we need to address. So just to wrap up the housing survey results, it was clear from the results that there are major housing challenges for survivors of brain injury as well as their caregivers and family members. And the major challenges were financial constraints, lack of appropriate housing, and long wait lists. And I've already stressed the stress on caregivers as well as the financial burden. So I want to talk about now why it's important to have a provincial voice for persons with lived experience. One of the statistics we know and we talk about a lot is that the annual incidence of acquired brain injury is greater than that of multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injury, HIV and AIDS, and breast cancer combined. Yet brain injury doesn't have a presence on the map. There are no brain injury policies. So we're cultivating this provincial network to build that voice and cultivate that presence for brain injury. And OBIA is doing great work to advocate for the needs of the brain injury community. As I mentioned before, it's important to understand the lived experience because people who are in positions of decision-making and policymakers, they may not know what it's like to live with a brain injury unless they've experienced one themselves. So we need people to tell their stories. And we've seen that real life experience and sharing those stories is really impactful. And this is just the beginning. We have 508 members of the network. We are continuing to grow. And there's a much larger number of persons who have experienced brain injury and concussion across the province. And we do want to get as many people involved in this network as we can so that we can make a strong case to the government that we need better brain injury care and supports. So let's strengthen the voice of the brain injury community. I'll share now how you can get involved in the network. So this is the OBIA website, which some of you may have been on before. If you look on the top tab here under supports and services, you'll find the Brain Injury Speaks at the bottom there. Or you can visit the link on the right, obia.ca/about -brain injury speaks. So the link is there for you, and I'll share that afterwards as well. When you click on the link, it will give you the option to join the network. So when you click there, it will take you to this form where you can input your information. And as I mentioned, none of the demographic data is shared with anyone outside of OBIA and ONF. We are very mindful of people's privacy, and that's something we really pay attention to. You can share as much or as little as you like. And if you have any questions about that when you're on the website and trying to join, you can definitely reach out to me. This is my contact information here. I'd love to connect with you. If you have any questions or would like to get involved, please feel free to reach out and email me. And I'll share this contact information with Ryan. So that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to make sure I left lots of time for questions and comments. So if you do have any questions at this point, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. If you have any general comments, you can share those there as well or in the chat. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gazal. That was fantastic. So great to see the awesome work you're up to. So I'm gonna try and get quiet here. I'll do my best, but yeah, I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A with Gazal. And yeah, again, if there's any questions left for Steve, I know there was one that I'd like to get to him. Steve, I don't know. I see that you saw the question. Do you want to answer it? Feel free to unmute yourself and join in with video again. Hey there, we can see you, Steve.
Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to answer this question? It says that was beautiful.
Can we?
Do you have a specific practice around reflection and remembering?
Actually, no, I don't. I just let my mind wander, not judgmentally or biased. Just let it wander and reflect on the things of the day. Think back the easy things. Think back what you had for breakfast, what you had for lunch, what you had for dinner, what you had the day before, what you kind of socks you put on this morning, color underwear, all these sorts of things. Just reflect, reflect, reflect. There's no specific practice other than you make your own, and you can develop or modify it as you wish, as is suitable.
Right on. Awesome. Thank you for answering that question, Steve. Yeah, and you got a comment, one step at a time at your own pace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gazal, I see there's a question here for you. Someone's asking if there's I think IG is Instagram. I'm really bad with acronyms, so you might have to help me out here, but an IG account. Social media is a great way to increase membership, distributing information, and raising awareness.
That is actually a wonderful idea. We don't currently have an Instagram account, but that's something I'm going to write down and see if we can make that happen, because I agree social media is a really powerful tool when it's used the right way. And I know OBIA does some promotion stuff over Facebook. So I'm going to write that down and see if we can make that happen.
Very cool. New ideas coming up in the presentation.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
Please feel free to share any ideas. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to include Steve's contact information in the chat again for everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, quiet bunch tonight. Positive energy is always encouraged, definitely. And welcomed. Yeah. I think we could all use some of that right now.
Always.
Yeah, Gazal, I don't know, is there anything else that you're doing with the Brain Injury Speaks for the rest of the year here, or anything you're looking forward to in January or at the beginning of next year?
I'm really excited for the focus groups and town hall sessions that we're launching in the new year. And I definitely will reach out to you, Ryan, for getting some participants for that. I think it's going to be a great way to really have some good dialogue, because the surveys we've been putting out, although they've been great at collecting data and information, I would love to have some more personal interactions with people. So I hope that some of you on the webinar tonight will be interested to talk about your experiences.
Well,
in
there is
those
one question here
platforms.
already. Just wondering how to get involved with the focus group.
Amazing. My email is right there. You can send me an email if you're able to. Let me know that you are here tonight listening to the webinar and that you're interested in joining the focus groups, and I'll send you information once we have the dates finalized. That's awesome. Thank you.
Very cool. So guys, we do have Gazal for just a little bit longer here. Any questions you have for her, let's get them in now. Of course, you can always send her an email if you prefer to do that, but while we've got her donating her time tonight, I'm sure there's some questions and comments for her. Okay, another question. Is there a national effort to put pressure on government, as this is also a disability issue? Anything you're aware of in that regard, Gazal?
From what I know, this is the only kind of platform, province-wide. I'm not aware of anything that is national across Canada, but I agree that, brain injury impacts so many aspects of life, and it's, it does affect disability and services. So that's something I think is really important, is to get the voice of the brain injury community out there within Ontario and then expand across Canada. Thank you for that question.
Steve, as we kind of wait for some more questions, I might ask you the same thing. Is there anywhere else you're speaking between now and the end of the year, or anything you're looking forward to in January, February?
No, just meeting with the board of my not-for-profit today. We were taking a break for December, given the COVID and holiday season.
Yeah.
So we'll be back in January doing a video for how to do laundry and banana bread together.
Okay.
My practice for many years was doing laundry and banana bread together as a form of multitasking. Works very well.
Steve, you'll have to share your
Relaxing and
banana
not
bread.
anxious. Sorry?
Sorry, I was saying you'll have to share your banana bread recipe with me.
I got it off the internet.
Very cool. And yeah, well-deserved break for you, Steve. I know you've been busy writing. Oh, sorry. You're okay. Here comes some more questions. So I'm just going to go in order, folks. If I'm not reading your question, I will get to it. So the first one was for Gazal. Great presentation. I notice I feel very disheartened and discouraged when I hear the data. How you engage in self-care around the uphill battle, or how do you engage in self-care around the uphill battle to advocate for people with brain injury?
Wow, that's a very reflective question. I think it's important in the work that I do in my personal life as well to really celebrate the small victories, because it is going to be a constant uphill battle, but there is always positives throughout the journey, even though some of the data may look quite bleak and some of the stories are really challenging to hear at times. But trying to find the positives throughout and holding on to those really gives me the courage and the grounding to keep moving forward.
For sure. Awesome. Yeah, and that sort of not exactly related question, but maybe to a similar sort of vein here. The disability and poverty and limited financial access is a big issue affecting housing security, which hinders recovery or any kind of rehabilitation. How can we provide more housing security for people living with ABI?
That's a very good question. I don't have a good answer to that right now, but from the work that I have been doing, the more that we identify the challenges and the more vocal we are about what it is that we need, the more likely it is that the government and other decision makers will start to listen, in my experience. So that's why, we created this network in the first place, is to start to cultivate that voice for the brain injury community. And hopefully we can make some of those changes going forward.
For sure.
Really, really good questions. Thank you.
Just such a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, folks, we'll leave it open for a few more minutes here. Any questions for Steve or Gazal are welcome. Oh, right away. Okay. Can we put a petition together? Seeing how CERB came into place after able-bodied people in weeks, I think we can make this happen. Yeah, I don't know. Have you become aware of anything like a petition for housing supports and funds, Gazal?
I
Not
know
that
there
I'm
was
aware of.
one input for CP Canada pension plan was one little bit of money that came for that the other week.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any, but I'll have to connect with my colleagues at OBIA who are doing a lot of the advocacy work to see if there's anything underway with regard to a petition or anything like that.
Okay. And sorry, there was another question came in. I'm just going to ask, if you don't mind, can you please maybe type your question in again? We'll certainly address it and we'll have it answered. I'm just wondering if you could maybe give us a little bit more detail to the individual who just showed up. Thank you for coming, by the way. It's good to see you in here. I do want to get your question answered, but yeah, if you don't mind, just a little bit more detail, please. So there was a question about workplace. If you don't mind, just a bit more detail there. Thank you.
I think this is actually my first time doing a webinar where I can't see participants' faces. So it's, I really wish I could see some of you right now. But thank you for all your great questions so far.
Okay. So we got a little bit more detail here, Gazal. It's kind of in pieces, so I hope
Okay.
that whoever asked the question, I'm going to do my best. If you feel like I didn't quite capture what you're meaning, ask the question again. So this is maybe a bit more general, but this individual is explaining that they had an ABI, and since then other people kind of just expect them to be better. They've noticed in workplaces it's kind of hard explaining their issues with concentration. Is there a way that, I don't know, either Steve or Gazal, you've come across some strategies or techniques or kind of a way of approaching a situation like this? Well, what do you think, Steve?
I had the opposite problem for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when it comes to some of the challenges with brain injury, and whoever has asked this question, if you're struggling with concentration issues, I think, even for persons who don't have a brain injury, everyone has certain needs that they need in order to thrive in the workplace. So, starting to have those conversations with colleagues to say, these are some parameters or strategies that I find I need in order to be most effective and most productive. If we can try to come up with some mutual strategies that we can put in place so it's easier for me, I would really be appreciative of that. Like I said, everyone has certain needs. And for me, I really need a door on my office. I really struggle to be in a workplace where it's very open. And so that's just one example of something that I needed to advocate for myself. And so, it is hard to have those conversations at times, but everyone has certain things that they need in order to be most productive and most effective in their work that they do.
For sure. And sorry, I know there was maybe a latecomer or two. The session is being recorded. I hope to have it up on our website tomorrow. It may be the next day, but you will see the video on our website by the end of the week. And of course, it's linked to YouTube. So if you've been to our YouTube page before, you'll find it there. Okay, looks like the questions are quieting down a bit. Gazal, Steve, thank you so much for donating your time tonight and presenting. It was so great to hear from both of you. You've been so incredibly busy and really such exciting things kind of on the horizon for you both. Thank you so much for talking to us. And again, we have their contact information here, folks. So if you missed it for some reason, just send me an email and I'll make sure to pass your questions along or get you guys in touch. And yeah, that kind of wraps up our November community meeting. Thank you so much for being here. I do hope to see you again in December. Again, we're doing a very large province-wide holiday party with some other brain injury associations. A lot of people involved, and I'm really excited about it. You'll find some more information on our website about it shortly, but just look out for that. But that's all from us. So have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Steve.
Bye now.